Hello, hello. I hope you are all doing well today. It is a beautiful, beautiful day here. I've got the sun pouring in through the windows and it is absolutely gorgeous. So I am in a very good mood today. And I'm really excited about this video because I didn't get to make the video that I wanted to make that was kind of along the lines of this before Christmas because I wasn't well. So this video is going to be, I was going to say it's going to be a favourite plants from 2023, but I feel like that moment has kind of been and gone. I'm going to do my favourite plants going into 2024. So a couple of these are new ones that I've acquired fairly recently that you haven't seen before. But I'm just going to talk you through some of the plants that maybe were favourites of mine from last year and why I am so excited about them, things that I'm hoping to achieve with them this year. And yeah, just take you through what I think are some really cool plants. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And yeah, so I've brought 10 plants over to show you today, and all of them, just looking at them here in front of me, are very, very different, but I love them all very much and I'm excited about them for different reasons. So yes, I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So the first one that's really exciting me at the moment is my Nepenthes, my monkey jar plant. And I spoke about this one towards the end of last year because this is a plant that I've looked at for a while. I've really loved the look of it. I just think it's so cool. It's so unusual, but it's one that I only added to my collection. When did I get this one? I think about maybe 3 or 4 months ago now. And so I feel like I've just been taking some time to really get to know the plant. As I say, I was a little bit nervous about it because I know carnivorous plants do have a reputation for being quite difficult. They have quite specific care requirements and they require specific kinds of water and all that sort of stuff. So it was a little bit of a challenge for me, and it's been a challenge that I've really enjoyed taking on because I've spoken in other videos about the fact that towards the end of last year, everything just felt a little bit overwhelming for me plant care wise. I definitely had some plant burnout, and for some reason I just didn't feel it with this plant. This plant, although it is one that requires probably more care than a lot of my other plants, it's one that I just have consistently really enjoyed caring for. And now I'm starting to reach the point where I actually feel like I've kind of figured it out and I'm not finding it that challenging. And I know it is still relatively early days, and typically I like to own a plant, or I like to grow a plant for kind of 5 or 6 months before I start trying to help other people grow theirs, because I know sometimes things will look fine for ages and ages and then they can take a turn. I know some of you have been asking when I'm going to be doing a care video on this plant, and as I say, the reason that I haven't done that yet is just because I'm still getting to know it, and although I feel like it's going pretty well so far, I'm still kind of figuring things out. And I'm experimenting as well. Like you can see, it's got a little bag of water underneath it and stuff like that. I'm experimenting with different growing techniques in order to keep the plant happy and in order to keep my life a little bit simpler as well. So yeah, I'm really proud of the growth I've managed to achieve so far with the plant. It's giving me lovely new pictures as well. I've seen that the pictures do cycle, like the old ones will start to brown and die off and then it will start giving me new ones. You can see it's starting to get ready to give me some there. But I just think it's a really cool plant. As I say, it's one that is bringing me a lot of joy at the moment and I can't wait to see what it does for me next. I've also heard that it's a very easy plant to propagate, and I haven't tried that yet, but I can see it is starting to kind of grow out of the pot, so I feel like that might be something that I explore a little bit more this year. But no, I can't wait to continue to keep you updated with this one because I just think it is so cool. And then this next one is a new addition to my collection, and it's one that I'm super excited about. If you're on my Patreon, then you will have seen it already, but I haven't shown you guys on here yet. And it is a Drimonia chiriborgana. I'm pretty sure. And I did say in the Patreon video as well, but this one was very kindly gifted to me. So thank you so, so, so much. It was one of you guys that sent it to me, and it is the most beautiful plant. And it's one that I had never even heard of before. And I know this might slightly contradict what I've been saying in other videos. I know I've said that this year I want to really, I'm not going to say downsize, but I really want to refine my plant collection, I guess is how you would put it. Just kind of make my life a little bit easier, make my plant collection just a little bit easier to maintain. Like I've said, I've been potting up duplicate plants so that I've just got one plant to look after instead of 3. But that being said, I think slowly and gradually, if I'm feeling in a good place with plants, which currently I'm feeling in such a good place, I'm feeling in a better place than I felt in a very long time, I am going to allow myself to bring some new ones into my collection as well, because that is, for me, part of the joy of owning plants. I love getting excited about new plants. I love learning about new plants. And I feel like I have so much learning to do with this little one, because when I first saw it, I thought it looked quite similar to the Aphelandra sclerosa, which is commonly known as the zebra plant. That's one that I had a few years ago now, actually, and I did in the end pass it on to another home because it was one that I just couldn't really get my head around, and so many things were going wrong, I just kind of gave up with it. But this one, now that I've actually seen it in person and felt it, it's almost like a succulent. It's very, very thick, its leaves. Like, I kind of feel like if I was to bend them, they'd kind of, I don't know, they'd snap. They're almost a little bit Hoya-like. I know it doesn't look like a Hoya, but there's just something, the robustness of the plant kind of reminds me of that. And I was a little bit concerned about this one when it first arrived, because it was sent at a time that it was incredibly cold here. We'd had a frost. I think we'd even had snow the night before. And it did have a couple of top leaves that were cold damaged, and I did sadly lose them. However, the rest of the plant is looking perky and full and gorgeous, and I haven't had any more issues. And it's been, I think, about a week and a half now-ish. But that being said, I haven't yet taken it out of what it came in. This is exactly how it was packaged, and I thought, seeing as the plant seems happy, I'm essentially not gonna touch it for a while. I'm just gonna put it somewhere so that it's stable, it's got good heat, it's got good light, and I'm just gonna leave it alone, because typically at this time of year, whenever the temperature is very low and you get plants, if they do have cold damage, one of the best things you can do is literally find stable conditions where you think they'll be happy and leave them alone. Moving them about is one of the worst things you could do, because they are so much more susceptible to stress. And so this one, I've just made sure that its moss is really hydrated, and I've just had it in the bottom of my cabinet there, and I haven't done anything else to it so far. So probably in the next week or two, I'm excited to get it out and have a look at the roots and just start to learn a little bit more about it, because I did, the lovely person that sent me this did show me pictures of the mother plant, and it looks gorgeous. So yeah, it was a lovely surprise, and something that I'm super excited to grow this year. And then another one that I have spoken about a few times since the last plant swap, but it's finally starting to do something very exciting for me now. It is the Rhaphidophora foraminifera, and this is the beautiful, beautiful leaf that it came with. And I propagated it, I think, in sphagnum moss. I'm pretty sure I propped it in sphagnum moss, and I recently transferred it to semi-hydro. This is the Lechuza Pon equivalent by Soil Ninja. And it has just started giving me the start of a new leaf, and this will be the first leaf it's given me in my care. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what it's like. I mean, it looks to be a fairly decent size, which, as I was saying the other day, sometimes when you get, I say a wet stick cutting, what I mean by that is just a midsection cutting that's not a top cutting. Sometimes the new growth can be a little bit stunted, and it can take a while to kind of reach the size of the main cut. And I was saying, actually, when I was talking about the Philodendron gigas the other day, that one also really surprised me, because its new leaves from mid-cut sections were really quite big. And although this isn't completely unfurled yet, it kind of looks like it might be the same with this one. So yeah, this is a type of Rhaphidophora that I've never owned before, and I've seen pictures of this plant mature, and oh my God, if I can find one, I'll put one on the screen, because it blew my mind when I saw this plant, and I couldn't believe it when I managed to get a cutting at the last plant swap. So yeah, I feel like now that this one's got going, if it's anything like other Rhaphidophora that I've owned in the past, it's gonna be fairly quick to grow. So I feel like coming back to this one at the end of the year, assuming everything goes well and I've still got this plant at the end of the year, which I very much hope I still do, but I think we're gonna see some pretty massive changes. I think once it gets going, it's gonna grow like a weed. But yeah, I can't wait to keep you updated with it and let you know what it does next. And then I briefly showed you this one when I first got it, and I haven't given any updates on this plant. It looks exactly the same, so there has been nothing to update so far. But it is the Hoya Calimantan, and I just think it is such a gorgeous Hoya. I love that veination. I love the luminous colour to its leaves. It's almost kind of like a yellowy green. And funnily enough, I got this as a cutting on Etsy, and I went onto Etsy because I really wanted a cutting of the Hoya calistophylla. It had been a wish list plant of mine for ages, and when I was getting that cutting in the same shop, I also stumbled across this one, and I was like, you know what? I was like, it wasn't that expensive, let's put it in the basket as well. And don't get me wrong, I love the calistophylla, and I'm really happy to have added it to my collection. But the Calimantan, the one that I hadn't even heard of it before I saw it, this has actually probably topped the calistophylla in terms of like expectations of owning the plant. And I know that sounds silly to say because, as I say, it hasn't done anything. It hasn't given me any new growth yet. I can see it has rooted. If you look into the semi-hydro, you can see little roots. But it hasn't done anything notable as of yet, but it is one that I'm just really excited to own. I feel like it's a really cool kind of statementy Hoya. It's so beefy and its leaves are so big, and I have no idea how this one's going to grow. I kind of get the impression just from the structure so far that at some point I might just get a big long runner and then maybe I should get it onto a trellis, but currently it's just one that I'm very intrigued by. And although it hasn't done anything, I think it's just very pretty as is. Like, I also really like the little vial I've put it in. I just got this at a charity shop, and I just think it looks really, really lovely. And Hoyas are typically very easy plants to care for, and so far I can say that this 100% fits that bracket. It has given me no grief at all. So yeah, it's one that I just keep looking at, and I don't know, I'm in no rush for it to kind of start doing crazy things for me, but every time I look at it I just think it's lovely, and I feel like it is just going to be a very rewarding plant to grow. So yeah, hopefully it gives me some lovely growth this year, but I'll let you know what it does. Oh, and then the next one. So I spoke about this one. If you watched my very long plant chores video the other day, you will have seen an update on this one. But you will also, if that's the case, know why it's on the list, because this right now is potentially, this is going to sound so sad, but potentially the most exciting thing going on in my plant collection for me, and it's only about that big. But I got myself a cutting for my birthday, which is back in September. I got myself a cutting of a Philodendron Esmeral Deni, and that had been a wishlist philodendron for me for a really long time, one that I'd wanted to add to my collection for ages. Finally got a cutting, and I do apologise because I know for a lot of you, you're probably familiar with me going back over this story, but I'm going to continue to do so because this is just really exciting for me. But I got it as a big, beautiful cutting. I put it into that's a lie. That is such a lie. I did not put it into sphagnum moss to propagate. I tried propagating it in the same way as I have done with the Hoya Calimantan here. I tried propagating it in a semi-hydro mix, which is something that I've never done for a philodendron before. Probably wouldn't do again. However, apparently this issue can happen with this type of plant anyway. Long story short, it rotted really, really badly. I lost the main leaf and the node completely rotted. And the node, I'm sure most of you know this, but the node is the point at which roots grow from. They cannot grow with philodendron. They cannot, or very rarely do they grow from any other point apart from the node. So I was pretty sure the plant was doomed, and I was so sad about it because, as I say, I had got my expectations up. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm just gonna put it back in my cabinet. Like even if nothing happens, at least I can say I tried. And then I started to notice about 3 or 4 weeks later, I started to notice a little bump appearing on the stem. And I thought to myself, what is that? Is that gonna be roots? How can the roots be coming from that point on the stem? There weren't any aerial roots or anything like that. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And it has just given me a teeny tiny little leaf. Like, look how small and adorable that is. And as you can see as well, that node is rotten. It is so rotten. And I've been reluctant to chop it back anymore just because I was living in hope that perhaps it would root from there. But there is no way in hell that's going to root from that point. But what I think it's doing, and this to me is just like magic, what I think it's doing is obviously it's pushed out this little leaf here, and in doing so that will create a whole new main stem and the plant will be able to grow nodes. And I think it's gonna now start to root probably from either that little point there or just at the base of that leaf there. I can't tell yet whether or not that's gonna be a node, because typically you can see them from a bump on the stem, and I can't see that because it is so small. But I think it's then gonna root from that point, and I potentially will be able to grow this plant. And I don't know why this is, I've never had this with a plant before in my care, and it's just made me go, oh my God, nature really is incredible, because everything was working against this plant. Everything, like, I was so sure it wasn't gonna make it, and the fact that it is now growing and hopefully gonna be fine is just incredible to me. It's absolutely incredible. So even if you are left with a little chunk that rots, I would honestly say don't give up on it. Pop it into a prop box, do what I've done, keep it in a little cup with sphagnum moss and just see what happens. I'm not saying it's always going to happen because this has never happened for me before. But yeah, I had to mention it in this video because it is something that is massively exciting me. And now that I've seen that it's doing this, I'm just checking on it all the time, and I cannot wait to see what happens for this plant. I will be so happy if it continues like this. So yeah, that is why that one's on this list. And a plant that's been just kind of like a consistent favourite in my collection for, oh my God, for as long as I can remember. I've done so many videos talking about how much I love this plant. It is my Calia Bolia, and this plant towards the end of last year, it started, I say the end of last year, probably the second half of last year, started giving me so many issues. And that's why showing you her, she is a lot smaller than you might remember her, because she was about that big at one point. And it's a plant that I as I say, I just adore. I really struggled to get my head around at first, but then touch wood didn't have any issues with for absolutely ages. And then I transferred this plant into semi-hydro, and I mean, I transferred her in the first place because I kept getting signals of watering imbalance with what I had potted in previously, which was just like a standard Calathea mix. And I was like, maybe I'll give semi-hydro a go. Maybe that will just help to keep my life a little bit easier and the plant's life a little bit easier and the plant a bit happier. And for the first couple of months, the plant she was fine. And then everything just started going wrong. She started rotting away at the base of the stems, and I checked the roots again. The roots were fine. I then got pests in there. And I know I said the other day, people say that you can't get fungus gnats in semi-hydro. You absolutely can. I had lots of them around the base, and then she also got thrips as well. And as I say, it was one thing after another, after another, after another. I chopped the plant back. I gave her a good pest treatment, and that just wasn't enough. So I think about 4 or 5 months ago-ish, I'll put a picture on the screen, but I pretty much completely chopped this plant back. I think she had 2 leaves and she was looking very sparse and not very happy at all. And I've had her in a bag since then, just kind of creating a nice little microclimate for the plant. And this is what she's currently looking like. And although she is much smaller than she was before, for the first time in a really long time, I feel like the plant is healthy. I haven't had any signs of pests. All the growth she's giving me is really full and beautiful. That leaf there has just finished unfurling, and I think it's so gorgeous. And although she's not as big and beefy, big and full as she was before. This is the first time that I'm looking at my Calia Bolia in probably half a year and actually seeing a healthy plant. And I know there might have been times at the beginning of last year, or like mid last year, where you looked at my videos and she looked healthy, but sometimes there are, like sometimes I'll show you something on camera and then I'll look at it off camera and I'm like, oh my God, it looks way worse in person. I feel like you can't always tell exactly. But yeah, I'm just really proud of this plant. I'm really happy with how she's doing, and I really hope that by the end of this year, I might be able to get her back to the stage that she was at the beginning of last year. And then another one that, to be honest, isn't doing as well as it could be at the moment, but I thought I'd put on this list, is my Peonia Hope. And oh my goodness, if you've been here for a while, you will know about my love for the Peonia Hope. I think it is one of the most underrated houseplants. It's super accessible, it's super cheap to buy, but it is just wonderful. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. But my Peonia Hope, since I moved into this flat, my original Peonia Hope, just started going downhill, and I won't go into all of the details, but basically it rotted and there was no saving it. So I did, for my birthday, treat myself to a little Peonia Hope, and it was probably about, like, I don't know, about there when I first got it. So it has grown in the time that I've had it. But I've had this problem that I know a lot of you have said is very, very common, where it just starts putting out this very leggy growth. And I never previously had that with this plant. So I've kind of been thinking like what was I doing differently when I grew the plant originally and what's going on now? And I know when my Peonia Hope was in the best state and when it was giving me gorgeous growth and when it was really full and it wasn't giving me these runners, it was growing in my mum's conservatory. So I can only put it down to the fact that this one isn't getting enough light, and that is kind of quite typical a lot of the time. Obviously with a lot of plants, they can get quite stretched and leggy and their growth can be smaller if they're not getting enough light. This one's been right in a north-facing window, which, although doesn't get a huge amount of sun throughout the day, it still gets a very decent amount of light. So I'm gonna put this one now, I'm actually probably gonna give it a bit of a chop back. I also want to try experimenting with propagating this plant again this year because it's something that I'd really like to get my head around. But I'm probably gonna put this one in the window that I showed you at the beginning, just next to me here, which is, I think it's southeast facing, and it does get some really lovely morning sunlight. And as we come into growing season and the sun moves around, it does get some full sun. So I'm going to experiment growing it there, and I'm going to just kind of monitor it and see if that is what it is, because I feel like watering wise, I'm doing everything the same. And it is, the common denominator here for me is light, bearing in mind that I did have a lot of success previously with this plant. So yeah, another one for that reason that currently I haven't made a care video on. I feel like I'm still striking the balance, but I've got it right once and I've got it, I'm not gonna say wrong because the plant's still growing, but I'm not giving the plant everything it needs currently. So it's gonna be, I feel like it's gonna be another learning curve plant. And for that reason, I am grateful, because I feel like everything I talk about in videos now is just purely through trial and error, stuff that I've tried over the years, stuff that's worked, stuff that hasn't. Anytime I feel like I can say, oh, here's a great tip on this, it's probably because I got something wrong in the past. So yeah, it's quite exciting in a, like, putting a positive spin on it. It's quite exciting in a way when a plant starts doing something unpredictable that you don't necessarily think is right, because you can then figure out how to correct it. So yeah, again, I will keep you updated. And then if you're over on Instagram, then you will have seen this one the other day. I'm really trying to get better at posting on Instagram this year because I just hate social media, but I have so far been quite enjoying sharing some updates over there. But I'm going to give you an update on my bear paw cactus, because this is one that I had growing really well for me. It was starting to flower, it was doing beautifully. I was so proud of this plant. And I'll put the post that I put on Instagram on the screen, but I took this photo, the one that you see wherever on the left. I took that photo, and honestly, moments after taking it, I put it on the side to water it and I knocked the plant off the side, and it lost all but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It lost all but 6 of its leaves. So it was it was very, very bare. It was literally just kind of like a twig with a few little bare paws here and there. And I tried to propagate the leaves, and to be honest, I've heard very mixed things about whether or not it's actually possible to propagate the bare paw cactus from leaf cutting, sorry. And if you have experience doing this, I would genuinely be so interested to know a little bit more, because I had no luck and I tried it in various different ways. And I've heard from some people that you can and some people that you can't. So as I say, if you have experience and success doing it, please drop me a comment down below. But anyway, I was really upset about this, but in such a short space of time, it's already starting to grow back. And I feel like, in a way, the fall that it took is almost like a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because the points at which it's putting out growth now, it's almost like when you pinch a jade plant back to encourage fuller growth. It's giving me several leaves from the point where previously there was just one. So I think it's actually gonna, once it gets going, it is going to mean that I've got a much bigger and fuller plant. So although I was very upset at the time, it all happens for a reason, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm really happy about this, and I'm so enjoying watching that gorgeous little growth come in, because I think it's just adorable. So yeah, I know this is one, I probably won't do lots of updates on this one, because this is one that is fairly slow to grow on the whole, but I'm just finding it very rewarding, and I'm just really excited that it's finally doing something for me. Oh, and then I've got two more. Which one shall I do first? Okay, I'll keep that one till last. I've got another new one that I want to show you, but I'm going to do this one first. But this one is, so this is the Philodendron domesticum Varia Garta, and this is one that I actually didn't get for myself. This was an imported plant that Emma imported, and funnily enough, long story short, it was actually delivered to me before her, because she was out of the country at the time. So I looked after this plant for her for, I can't remember how long, a good few weeks. And I acclimated it, and I don't remember that much about the plant from back then, but she came around a few months ago and she was like, I'm getting rid of some plants. I remember you really liked this one when you looked after it. Do you want it? And I was like, I don't remember the plant you're talking about. But anyway, I thought I'd give it a go, and I chopped it back because it was giving quite weird growth, like very small weird growth. And since it started to regrow, it has got some variegation on the leaves, and I'm really quite happy with how it's growing. I'm not sure what the kind of like grand plan for this plant is at the moment as it grows and develops, but looking at pictures of it that I found online, it seems quite similar in structure to the Philodendron golden dragon, just from what I've seen. Obviously, I haven't grown this big yet, but if it does grow like that plant, then I'm really excited, because that's one that I absolutely love and I find fairly easy to grow. So yeah, I'm just very intrigued by it, very intrigued. As I say, it's one that I haven't done a huge amount of research on yet. I feel like I should definitely put some time aside to find out a little bit more about it. I think sometimes I can get a bit complacent. I'll just hear variegated philodendron and I'll be like, yep, cool, I know what that looks like. But they are all slightly different, and I have found that like sometimes just like changing a simple thing for one can equate to amazing growth that you might not get in another. So I do need to do a little bit of digging. And if you've got any tips for this plant, please do let me know what they are, because as I say, I'd be really interested to know more. But yeah, it's just one that is really exciting me, and one that I wasn't expect to be enjoying growing so much. Oh, but then the final one. This one is so incredibly exciting. And again, I have already shown you this one if you're over on my Patreon. But this is another one that was very kindly sent to me recently, and I had no idea that this was actually the very kind person that sent me this one, the Drimonia, and my little Antherium Vitarfolium also included this one. So again, I honestly cannot thank you enough. I'm so incredibly grateful, and I'm so excited about this one. But this one is an Antherium Vitarfolium, and the lovely person that sent me this said that they'd seen that I was after a Paludiflorum, and they were like, obviously this has got the lovely strappiness of that Antherium, and to be honest, it ticks so many boxes for me. Don't get me wrong, I am very much still after a Paludiflorum, but this one, I've had it hanging in my window and I I can't stop looking at it. I think it's just beautiful. And it has got one leaf just here that I'm pretty sure, in fact, it looks even more yellowy on camera. I'm pretty sure this one is on its way out. But the rest of its leaves are looking really healthy, really robust. It's feeling really, really full and really healthy. And currently I've just got it growing in sphagnum moss, which is what it came in. Similarly to what I said about the Drimonia, I haven't wanted to disrupt things too much, especially since this was one that was shipped in very cold conditions. But it's just one that I am so happy to have, and I am so excited to grow this year. I really just want to try and get it as big and full and long as possible, because strappy anthuriums just, like, they just do something to me. I cannot explain it. And again, I said in that other video that I was talking about, Ross doesn't get it. He's like, yeah, it's fine. And I know that not every plant should tick every box for every person. But for me, there is something about strappy anthuriums. I think it's the texture thing again. But I look at them and I'm just like, oh, I could just fill my house with them. So yeah, I'm very, very, very excited to grow this one. But yeah, as I say, there's a lot that's exciting me in my collection at the moment, and it's really nice to be feeling so excited by all of it again, because as I said at the beginning of this video, I did slip into like more burnout than I think I realised towards the end of last year. But doing all the little resetting things that I've been doing so far this year, I'm just loving my plant care more than I feel like I've loved it in a really long time. I'm like, every single evening, I don't want to stop. I just keep going around and I'm like, I don't know, just like dusting my plants and just doing the little extras that always make you feel good about them when you want to do them, if that makes sense. Like when you're not like trying to force yourself to do them because you have to. And yeah, it's the best feeling in the world. So long may that continue. And thank you to you guys as well, because I really feel like speaking to people in the plant community, kind of talking about this and being able to share this is definitely something that is helping me to feel this way about my plants again. So yeah, thank you all for that. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.